You made it to the end of this day. That alone is worth acknowledging. Whatever happened, the noise of it, the motion of it, all the small demands that pulled at you from morning through evening, none of it has to follow you into sleep. If you're someone who finds solace in the size of the universe, then let it comfort you now, in a cosmos measured in billions of light, years and billions of years. The events of one day have a lightness to them, a smallness that is actually quite peaceful. And if you're someone who trusts in a plan, in a care that runs deeper than what you can see, then let that trust settle in now. You have been looked after before. You will be looked after still. Tonight, you don't have to figure anything out. Tonight, you only have to rest. And so, gently, we begin with the stillness and the sound of leaves and the slow, imperceptible work of growing bamboos. Imagine you are standing at the beginning of something very slow, not slow in the way that waiting feels slow, not slow in the way that time drags when you're watching for something to happen, slow in the way that the oldest things on earth are slow, slow in the way that growth happens, that rivers carve, that stone becomes soil over centuries and centuries, a different kind of slowness, a comfortable one. You find yourself at the edge of a bamboo forest, and the light here is already different from the world you have left behind. It comes through in long, pale shafts, filtering between thousands of green stalks that rise all around you, not the sharp light of open sky. Something softer, something already diffused, already gentled by its passage through layer upon layer of leaf and air. The light reaches you cool and green, tinted, the way light feels at the bottom of something vast. And it is exactly this quality of filtered, unhurried light that makes the forest feel like a world apart. You are wearing comfortable clothes. The ground beneath your feet is soft, a thick accumulation of fallen leaves, layer upon layer of them, seasons of bamboo leaves that have drifted down and settled, and slowly, very slowly, returned to the earth. Each step is quiet. Each step is cushioned. There is a faint give to the ground, a gentle resilience, like walking on something that has been gathering softness for a very long time. The bamboo rises all around you, not in a single line or a careful arrangement, but in the dense, repeating profusion of a forest, stalk after stalk after stalk, each one a pale green, gold, each one rising in its patient, vertical way. Some are as slender as your wrist, some are as wide as your forearm. All of them are straight and smooth and marked at intervals by those distinctive nodes, those gentle rings that wrap around each comb at regular distances, like notches carved into something ancient. Each node is a pause, a resting place, a moment where the bamboo gathered itself before continuing upward. The forest is quiet, but not silent. There is the sound of wind moving through 10,000 leaves high above you, a sound that is both constant and variable, rising and falling with the breath of the air. It is the kind of sound that does not demand your attention. It is the kind of sound that simply surrounds you. That becomes part of the atmosphere. The way rain sounds from inside a warm room. You do not need to listen to it. It is simply there, and it is peaceful. You take a slow breath in. The air here carries the scent of living green things, something clean and faintly vegetable, faintly sweet. The smell of chlorophyll and damp earth, and the particular coolness that lives inside a dense forest where the sun touches the floor in only fragments and patches. You breathe out slowly. Your shoulders drop a little. Your jaw unclenches. very gently, without effort. The way tension releases when you remember that releasing it is possible. You are in no hurry to go anywhere. This forest has been growing for a very long time, and it will continue growing long after tonight. There is no destination, no end point, no thing you are trying to reach. You are simply here, in the green stillness, in the slow company of bamboo that is going about its ancient, quiet business of growing. You are welcome to drift through it at any pace that feels comfortable. You are welcome to slow down further, to stop and simply stand and let the forest be around you, to let your attention settle wherever it naturally finds rest. There is no rush here. There has never been any rush here. The stalks around you, you notice, looking at them properly now, how each one is slightly different in shade. Some are a deeper, more saturated green, catching what light filters through. Some have a golden warmth to them, particularly where a slant of sunlight finds its way through a gap in the canopy high above. Some have begun to age into a pale straw color near their bases, where they have been standing longest, where the seasons have had the most time to work on them. All of them, every stalk in every shade, are calm and vertical and perfectly still except for the slightest, gentlest movement when a breath of wind passes through. You drift slowly forward, moving between the stalks, and the forest receives you quietly. You move a little deeper in, and the light shifts as you do. At the very edge of the forest, where the bamboo met open air, there was still a brightness, a sense of the outside world nearby. But now, moving further in, the light has become something more even, more continuous. The stalks around you multiply, and the sky above is visible only in fragments, small irregular pieces of pale gray and soft white and distant blue, glimpsed through the interlocking lattice of culms and leaves and the slow drift of other leaves falling from somewhere above. The forest interior has its own quiet world. The stalks here are older, many of them. They have been standing for years, some for 3 years, some for 5, some for longer than that. You can tell, in a vague and peaceful way, which stalks are older and which are newer, not because you need to count or calculate, but simply because the older ones have accumulated something, a certain quality of stillness, a depth of color, a rootedness that the newer ones are still growing into. A bamboo stalk, the proper name for it is culm, a word that sounds like calm, a word that sits comfortably in the mouth. A culm does not grow slowly in the way that a tree grows slowly. A tree adds a ring each year, a ring so thin it can hardly be measured, laying down new wood through seasons so gradual, they are invisible to any single observer. Bamboo is different. Bamboo is famously fast. When its season comes, and yet the forest you are in now has taken decades to become what it is. The individual culms grew quickly. The forest itself grew slowly, patiently. One season's culms added to the last. The rhizome network underground, spreading outward, year by year in its methodical way, the whole slow accumulation of it building into the dense, layered, peaceful world you are standing inside now. You rest your hand lightly against the nearest stalk, and it is smooth and cool beneath your palm. The surface of a bamboo culm has a particular quality, not quite like wood, not quite like grass, though bamboo is, technically, a grass, the largest grass on earth, a grass that grows into this, a forest, tall and green and ancient, feeling, a forest that has been called up from something as simple as a grass seed through the slow, patient work of roots and rhizomes and years. The stalk is smooth, slightly cool, solid in a way that feels reassuring. You lean your weight against it, just slightly, and it accepts that weight without moving. The root system beneath your feet, spreading, interconnected, patient, holds everything steady. The wind moves through the canopy again, and you hear it coming before it reaches you. A gentle wash of sound moving from one side of the forest to the other. The way a wave moves through water. The leaves respond, thousands of them turning and catching the air, each one adding its small voice to the collective sound. And then it passes, and the forest settles back into its quieter register. You stand here for a while, without any particular need to move. The light shifts, not dramatically, not in any way that demands attention, but in the way that light in a forest always shifts, slowly, as clouds move across the distant sky above, as the angle of the sun makes its gradual, imperceptible journey. For a moment the light is cooler, more silver, then warmth returns, pale gold filtering through, and the nearest stalks catch it and seem to hold it in their green walls for a long moment before releasing it again into the surrounding air. Peaceful and quiet, calm and still. You find yourself breathing in the rhythm of the forest, long and slow and unhurried. In and out, in and out. There is no urgency to this breathing. There is only the steady exchange of air, the same exchange that the leaves all around you are performing in their own patient way, taking in the light and the air and the water that rises through each stalk from deep in the earth below, and turning all of it, very slowly, very quietly, into growth. The forest grows. Even now, in this moment, the forest is growing, not in any way you could perceive, not in any way a single night could reveal. But the process is continuous, unhurried, ancient. The cells at the tips of the bamboo underground, the rhizomes, the spreading root network are dividing, slowly, making themselves into more of themselves, extending the reach of the forest by fractions of fractions. The process does not pause. It does not rush. It simply continues. The way a river continues, the way time continues. You drift forward, deeper into the green. You look down. The ground here is extraordinary. When you take a moment to notice it properly, not extraordinary in any dramatic sense, not startling or unusual, extraordinary in the way that closely observed ordinary things become when you give them your unhurried attention, when you let your gaze rest on something and simply stay there for a while. The forest floor is a deep, layered accumulation. Bamboo leaves are small compared to many forest leaves, narrow, pointed, light. Each one is only a few inches long, but there are so many of them, and they fall continuously throughout the year rather than all at once in a single season. So the floor has built up over time into a thick, soft, multi-layered carpet. You can see the different ages of leaves in the various layers if you look carefully. The newest ones, fallen most recently, are still pale green or just beginning to yellow. Beneath them, older leaves have turned to a warm tan and brown, still holding their shape but becoming papery and thin. Beneath those, older still, the leaves have begun to lose their form, to soften into something less defined, to become part of the substrate rather than individual leaves. And beneath all of that, Years and years of leaves have become something barely distinguishable from the dark soil itself, returned to the earth from which the bamboo drew them in the first place. This is the cycle, slow and patient and endlessly repeating. The bamboo draws nutrients from the soil, builds them into leaves, drops the leaves, and the leaves become the soil again. Round and round, season after season, decade after decade, nothing wasted, nothing hurried. You crunch, very softly, through the uppermost layer of fallen leaves as you walk, and the sound is muffled, cushioned, gentle, not the sharp crackle of dry autumn leaves in an open wood. The bamboo leaves have a different quality, drier, lighter, less brittle. They rustle softly beneath your feet and fall back into place. Here and there on the forest floor, you notice other things growing. Moss, in small patches, a vivid green against the tan of the fallen leaves. The moss grows where the moisture collects, where a slight depression in the ground gathers water after rain. The moss is dense and soft, looking, each tiny plant no more than a centimeter high, but the colony of them spreading over a palm-sized patch of ground, making a small cushion of green that catches whatever light filters down to the forest floor. The moss has been here for a long time. It grows even more slowly than the bamboo around it, adding to itself in increments so small they are essentially invisible, simply being green and patient and present in the dimness beneath the canopy. You lower yourself gently, sitting on the forest floor, your back against one of the older bamboo culms. The ground is surprisingly comfortable, all those layers of fallen leaves making a natural cushion. Slightly damp, but not wet. Cool and soft. Above you, the canopy of bamboo leaves moves slowly in the distant air, and the light comes down to you in its filtered, gentle way. From this closer angle, at ground level, the forest looks different. The forest floor stretches in all directions, and the bamboo culms rise from it like columns, pale green columns, some clustered close together, some with a little more space between them, all of them rising to a height that, from here, seems vast. The canopy is far above, the individual leaves visible as small shapes against the lighter sky, each one contributing to the overall softness of sound that fills the air. It is very quiet here, close to the ground. A small creature moves somewhere in the leaf litter. You sense, rather than see it, a slight rustling, a tiny disturbance in the fallen leaves. A small beetle, perhaps, or a millipede, or one of the countless small animals that make their life in this layer of decomposing leaves and slowly returning organic matter. The forest floor supports an entire world of these small, unhurried lives, organisms that move through the darkness of the leaf litter, doing the patient work of breaking down the fallen leaves, making them into soil, contributing to the great slow cycle that sustains everything above. The rustling settles. The forest is quiet again. You let your eyes close slightly, just resting them, just letting the filtered green light become a soft impression behind your eyelids. The sound of the canopy far above continues, a constant gentle background, wave after wave of leaf, sound moving through the air. Your breathing slows further, matching the pace of the forest, which is to say, very slow, very easy, very comfortable. The forest floor holds you. The bamboo rises around you. The light drifts through in its quiet, patient way. Beneath you, right now, while you rest against the cool, smooth stalk of a bamboo culm with your back comfortable against its solid surface, There is a world you cannot see. It extends in all directions. That underground world. It is made of rhizomes. A rhizome is a stem that grows horizontally underground. It is not a root. Exactly. It is more than a root. It stores energy. It sends out roots of its own, downward, to gather water and minerals from the soil, and it sends out shoots, upward, toward the surface, which will become new culms, new stalks, new additions to the forest above. The rhizome is the connective tissue of the bamboo forest, the hidden network that links every stalk to every other stalk, that makes the forest not a collection of separate plants, but something closer to a single organism, spreading slowly outward through the earth. The rhizomes of this forest have been spreading for a very long time. Imagine them, if you like, and you can imagine them from the comfort of where you sit, with no need to see them directly. Horizontal stems moving through the dark soil, each one pale and smooth, traveling sometimes in a fairly direct line and sometimes curving gradually around a stone or the buried remnant of an older root. They travel perhaps a few feet each year, in good conditions, perhaps less, in years when the soil is dry or the season is cold. They do not rush. There is nowhere particular they are trying to go. They simply extend, gradually, filling the available space with their patient spreading. At intervals along each rhizome, buds form. These buds wait. They wait through winter, through dry spells, through the patience of the underground. And when conditions are right, when warmth returns, when moisture is sufficient, when the stored energy in the rhizome reaches its threshold, these buds begin to swell, very slowly at first. Then, in bamboo's one great exception to its generally gradual pace, quite quickly, a new shoot emerges. But that is a story for another section of the journey. For now, you are simply aware of the rhizome network extending beneath you in the dark soil, a few inches down, or a foot down, or more, depending on the species, depending on the conditions, extending in all directions from all the stalks around you, forming a loose web, an interconnected grid of living material. The network carries water. It carries dissolved minerals. It carries the simple sugars that the leaves above have made from light and air, carried down through the stalks and into the underground, where the rhizomes can store it against future need. The bamboo forest is generous with itself in this way. Each stalk supports the network. The network supports each new stalk. The resources move through the connections, from where they are abundant to where they are needed, in a slow and constant sharing. This is how the forest sustains itself. Not through competition, through connection, through the steady, patient movement of what is needed through channels that have been growing longer and more complex for decades. Beneath the rhizomes, roots reach further down, fine roots, branching and re-branching, exploring the soil for water. A single bamboo plant in an established grove may have roots reaching a meter down and extending outward several meters in all directions. All of this underground architecture was built gradually, over many seasons, each year's growth adding a little more reach, a little more surface area, a little more capacity to gather what the forest needs. You rest against the stalk, and you can feel, if you let yourself feel it, very gently, with the particular attention that comes when you are relaxed and unhurried, you can feel the very faint, very subtle solidity of something that is not just a plant, but a system, a whole quiet system, working gently in all directions, visible and invisible, above and below, connected in its slow and patient way. The wind moves through the canopy again, high above, wave after wave of leaf, sound, coming and going. The cool air of the forest settles around you. The light comes through in its gentle, shifting way. And the afternoon, or whenever this is, time moves differently here. The afternoon continues its slow and comfortable passage. You close your eyes fully, just for a moment. The sound of the forest surrounds you. The ground holds you up, firm and soft at once. The bamboo stands around you in its thousands, breathing its slow breath of photosynthesis, spreading its slow net of roots, being what it is, patient, connected, still. In the early days of a new growing season, something stirs. It stirs underground first, invisible. A bud on a rhizome, one of the many buds that have been waiting through the quieter months, begins to sense the change in temperature. A warming, very gradual, of the soil above it. The days are growing longer. More light is reaching the forest floor, finding its way through the canopy in slightly different angles, slightly longer lines. The moisture content of the soil shifts as the season changes. And in response to all of this, to temperature, to light, to moisture, to the slow chemical signals traveling through the rhizome network, from the established stalks above, the bud begins to activate. This is a very slow beginning. You would not be able to see it if you were watching. Even if you could see through the soil, even if you could watch the bud directly, the first days of its activation would offer nothing visible to your eyes. The cells inside the bud are dividing, slowly, methodically. One cell becoming two, two becoming four, four becoming eight. Each division adding to the small mass of new material that will eventually become a comb. The division is happening at the level of the invisible. It is happening in the warmth and darkness of the soil, in the quiet space between the rhizome and the surface. Days pass. Nothing visible. The process continues. The bud swells, gradually, as the mass of dividing cells increases. It becomes a small pointed shape in the soil, still underground, still invisible to anything above the surface. It is pointed at the top, a natural shape for something that will need to push through soil and leaf litter and into the light. Nature makes practical shapes, and this shape is practical. A cone, a gentle point, built to part the earth in front of it with the minimum of resistance. More days pass, and then, and this is one of the quieter marvels of the bamboo forest, the tip of the new shoot breaks the surface. You are sitting nearby, resting in the filtered light of the forest, and you might just notice it. If your gaze happened to drift in that direction, a small disturbance in the leaf litter, a slight mounding, a tiny pale point emerging very slowly from between the dead leaves on the forest floor. The shoot has arrived. It is very small, a few centimeters, perhaps, a pale conical shape, wrapped in protective sheaths, modified leaves that surround the new shoot like a set of overlapping scales, each one shielding the delicate growth within. The sheaths are a warm brown, green, papery at their edges, firm at their centers. They look, in their way, a little like an artichoke or a closed pine cone, a layered, protected thing, keeping the new growth safe inside while it gathers itself for the ascent. The shoot is cool to the touch. If you were to reach out and rest your fingertips very lightly against it, cool and slightly firm, not brittle, There is something very much alive in the resistance of it, a gentle, quiet aliveness, a solidity that speaks of growth already underway, of energy already committed to the process of becoming. Over the following days, the shoot will grow, and here, uniquely among the plants of the forest, the growth will become something you could, if you were patient enough, actually perceive. Bamboo shoots grow at rates that defy what most people expect from a plant, several inches per day in the fastest species, in the best conditions. Not all bamboo grows this fast. This particular forest is a temperate bamboo, and its shoots grow more modestly. But even at a more modest pace, growth of several centimeters per day is possible. Day by day, the shoot rises. But for now, it has just emerged. It is small and new and protected in its sheaths. And it is simply here, on the forest floor, beginning. You look at it for a long while, without any particular need to look away. It is very peaceful. Looking at a new shoot, there is nothing it needs from you. It does not require observation to continue. It will grow whether you watch or not, slowly, at its own unhurried pace, adding to itself day by day until it is a culm like all the others. That process has already begun, and it will continue through nights and days and rain and sun, long after you have fallen into your deepest sleep. The shoot stands in its small, patient way, and the forest continues around it, and the light comes through in its filtered green way, and everything is very still. Imagine, now, that time moves a little differently here. Not fast, not in the rushing, dizzy way that time. Lapse images compress months into seconds. Nothing like that. Just, a little more gently elastic. A day becomes a soft impression. You stay in the same comfortable place, resting against the same cool, smooth stalk. But you are aware of the passage of time as a gentle drift rather than a sequence of measured hours. Morning, and then the light of afternoon, and then something softer, and then morning again. Days, drifting past like leaves carried on a slow current. And as the days pass, the shoot rises. It rises from the forest floor with a patience that is also, somehow, a kind of purpose. Each day it is taller than the day before. Not dramatically taller, not in a way that shocks or surprises, but measurably, comfortably taller. The protective sheaths around it hold their overlapping arrangement, and as the shoot grows, the sheaths are revealed to have been accordioned around the new growth, compressed layer upon layer, waiting to expand as the stalk they protect extended upward. As the culm rises, the sheaths gradually spread apart and, in time, fall away, drifting down to join the leaves on the forest floor, returning to the earth. Beneath the sheaths, the culm is revealed. Pale green, smooth, already showing those characteristic nodes, the ringed joints that divide the culm into segments. Each segment hollow, each node solid and strong. The nodes are the culm's architecture, its structural reinforcement. A bamboo stalk with its hollow internodes and solid nodes is an engineering solution that humans have admired and studied for thousands of years. Light, flexible, immensely strong for its weight. The hollow center makes the culm lighter than a solid cylinder of the same diameter would be. The nodes keep the structure from collapsing. The whole design is the result of many millions of years of gradual refinement, but there is nothing hurried or dramatic about the result. It is simply a stalk of bamboo, pale green and smooth and rising steadily toward the light. As the culm grows, it does not thicken. This is one of the gentler surprises of bamboo. The diameter of a culm is established when the shoot first emerges. It will not grow wider as the years pass. What emerges from the ground is, in terms of its girth, what it will always be. A thick shoot becomes a thick culm. A thin shoot becomes a thin culm. Growth is vertical, not horizontal. The culm rises, day by day, through the space between the older stalks. It is growing up through a world already established, already occupied by years of other culms that have risen before it and now stand in their patient rows all around. The light it is reaching for is already filtered by those older stalks, already passed through layer upon layer of leaf above. But there is enough light. There is always enough light in a healthy forest, distributed through the canopy in its complex, shifting way. The culm slows. After its initial period of faster growth, it settles into a different pace, a finishing pace. The internodes, the hollow sections between nodes, gradually solidify their walls. The walls thicken, cell by cell, laying down new material in the quiet way that bamboo does these things, not dramatically, not all at once, but steadily, adding substance, adding strength. The culm is completing itself. Branches begin to emerge from the nodes near the top of the young culm. Small, at first, just the beginnings of the lateral branches that will eventually carry the leaves. The branches grow outward and then curve gently upward, the way all the branches of all the bamboo around you curve, a slight arc, a gentle bow toward the light. And on those branches, very gradually, leaves begin to unfurl. The leaves of bamboo are small, as forest leaves go, narrow and pointed. A bright, clear green in their youth, a deeper green as they mature. Each leaf is a small factory, quietly doing the work that all leaves do, absorbing light, absorbing carbon dioxide from the air, combining them with water drawn up from the roots far below, making sugar in the slow and ancient process that sustains almost all life on Earth. Photosynthesis. The word is large and scientific sounding, but the process is simply this: turning light into life, slowly, continuously, in millions of tiny green surfaces spread out to catch whatever the sun provides. The leaves unfurl, one by one. The new culm, which was a shoot on the forest floor not so many days ago, is now a young stalk with its first leaves reaching out into the filtered air. It will not grow taller now. Bamboo reaches its full height in a single growing season and then maintains that height for the rest of its life, which may be many years. It will simply stand and leaf out further and become part of the canopy above, contributing its share of leaf surface to the great green ceiling of the forest. It will become part of the light filter. It will become part of the sound. Its leaves, in time, will add their voices to the constant leaf sound that moves through the canopy whenever the wind visits. It will become, in the gentlest possible way, ordinary, unremarkable, one stalk among thousands, indistinguishable from its neighbors to any but the most careful observer. And this ordinariness is not a failure. It is the goal, to become part of the forest, to become part of the whole. The new culm stands in its quiet place, and the forest absorbs it, and the light comes through in its filtered, gentle way, and the days continue their comfortable drift. You have been watching the forest floor for a long time. Now let your gaze drift upward, up the length of the stalks, rising from the ground. level world of fallen leaves and moist soil and patient rhizomes. Up through the air of the middle forest where the older culms stand in their density. Up, all the way up, to the canopy. The canopy of a bamboo forest is a particular kind of ceiling, not solid, not a single continuous surface, the way the ceiling of a room is. Instead, it is a dense and layered lattice, thousands of individual leaves overlapping and interweaving at the tops of thousands of stalks, creating something that is both substantial and permeable. Light gets through, rain gets through, filtered and broken into smaller droplets by its passage through the leaves. Wind gets through, finding its way between the stalks and through the canopy and emerging on the other side changed, slowed, gentled, carrying the scent of the forest. The leaves at the canopy level are where most of the forest's work happens. The leaves lower down, in the shade of their higher neighbors, do what they can with the reduced light that reaches them, a fraction of the fraction that makes it through the canopy. But up there, at the top, the leaves are in the light more directly, and they work steadily, turning it into the sugars that feed the whole system. You cannot see the individual leaves from where you are. From your position on the forest floor, the canopy appears as a shifting, layered pattern of green, a depth of green, many shades of it, the different ages of leaves and different angles of surface, all contributing to a single impression of dense, living greenness above you. Occasional gaps show a glimpse of sky, pale and distant, framed in bamboo leaves. When the wind comes, as it does periodically, moving through the forest in its unhurried way, the canopy responds. The leaves turn and flutter, each one a small sail catching the air, and the collective movement of them produces that sound, the sound that has been with you since you entered the forest. A soft, continuous shushing, a rustling that rises and falls with the gusts. That sounds, if you listen without trying to analyze it, almost like breathing, as though the forest itself is breathing, as though the forest is taking long, slow, even breaths, and you, resting below, are breathing along with it, in through the canopy, cool and fresh, out again, warm and slightly different, carrying the exhaled water vapor of thousands of leaves. The forest breathes, you breathe, and the sound of the breathing is the rustling of 10,000 leaves, each one adding its small fraction to the whole. Light moves through the canopy in shifting patterns throughout the day. In the early hours, the light comes from a low angle and penetrates the canopy in long diagonal shafts, each one visible in the forest air where particles of dust or water vapor or the finest pollen catch it and make it into something you can see, a shaft of pale morning light falling through the green, drifting slowly as the forest breathes and the leaves shift. By midday, the light is more vertical, and the shafts shorten, and the forest floor gets its brightest moment, though brightest is relative. Here, always dimmer than the open world outside, always cooler, always filtered. In the afternoon, the shafts lengthen again, appearing on the other side of the vertical, and the light takes on a warmer quality, and the shadows lengthen between the stalks. The pattern repeats each day, as it has repeated each day for the life of this forest, which is to say for many years. The light comes and goes. The forest receives it. The leaves do their patient work. The sugars flow downward through the stalks and into the rhizomes where they will be stored. And the cycle completes itself and begins again. You watch the canopy move in the wind for a long time. There is no need to understand it. There is no need to name the process or remember the mechanism. The canopy is simply beautiful in its quiet way, green and layered and alive, doing what it has always done, receiving the light and returning what it can to the forest below. A single leaf detaches from a branch somewhere high above and begins its slow descent. You watch it fall, drifting, turning very slightly as it comes down through the still air of the forest. It passes through a shaft of light, and for a moment it glows, briefly, gently, a warm green, gold, before it moves back into the dimmer air below and continues its descent. Down through the middle air of the forest, past the smooth, pale stalks, down toward the floor where all the other leaves before it have already settled, already begun their slow return. The leaf lands without sound, or with a sound so small you cannot separate it from the general quiet. And the canopy continues above, thousands of leaves remaining, each one doing its quiet work. And the forest is as it was, and the light comes through in its filtered, gentle way, and time moves slowly and peacefully in the green air. There is the sound, first. A change in the quality of the air, something you sense before you hear it. A slight cooling, a slight heaviness. The light shifts. The gaps in the canopy above going from pale blue, white to a softer, more diffuse gray. And then, quite gently, rain begins. It arrives at the canopy first. The drops strike the upper leaves, each impact making a small, soft sound, a tap, a patter, and the water gathers and runs along the leaf to its tip and falls again, now broken into smaller droplets by its first collision, falling to the next layer of leaves and the next, each layer catching and redistributing, each layer adding its own gentle sound to the whole. By the time the rain reaches the forest floor, it has been broken into the finest of drops, a soft spray rather than distinct drops, arriving at the ground in a diffuse, gentle way. The forest under rain is different from the forest in dry weather, cooler, more fragrant. The smell of the leaf litter when moisture reaches it is rich and dark and deeply calming. The smell of wet earth and living things, the smell that some people carry in their memory from childhood, from gardens, from forests walked in autumn rain. The stalks around you gleam, the water running down their smooth surfaces in thin sheets, collecting at each node in a brief pool before spilling over and continuing downward. The sound of rain in a bamboo forest is unlike the sound of rain in other forests. The leaves are small and numerous, and they respond to rain with a particular quality of sound, a fine, continuous, layered rustling, rain, sound, and leaf, sound combined into something that has been described by people who have rested in bamboo forests in the rain as one of the most calming sounds in the natural world. There is no sharpness to it, no abrupt percussion, just the continuous soft fall of water through layer after layer of leaf, and the dripping from the stalks, and the quiet absorption of the forest floor. You are comfortable in the rain. The canopy overhead diffuses it so thoroughly that what reaches you is little more than a cool mist, a gentle dampening of the air rather than anything that soaks or chills. You can sit in the rain in a bamboo forest and feel, essentially, dry, surrounded by rain, accompanied by rain, but sheltered from it by the patient architecture of the canopy above. The rain passes, as rain does, gradually, the sound of it diminishing over the space of several minutes, the forest adjusting as the moisture works its way through each layer, the last drops falling from the tips of the lowest leaves long after the rain itself has stopped, the forest continuing to drip and settle in its own time. And this is the rhythm of a forest across a season: rain and dry, warmth and cooling, the light of long summer days and the dimmer light of shorter winter ones. Each season brings its change to the bamboo, and the bamboo responds in its characteristic way, not with drama, not with the spectacular leaf dropping of deciduous trees, not with the visible die back of annual plants. Bamboo keeps its green year round, its calms standing through whatever the seasons bring, adding new growth when conditions allow, resting when they do not. In the growing season, and different regions have different growing seasons for their bamboo species, the forest is most active in its underground work. The rhizomes extend, the new shoots form. In the cool season, the underground rhizomes rest, storing their energy, waiting for the warmth to return. The culms above continue to stand, continue to carry their leaves, continue to exchange gases in the slow and steady way of evergreen plants. The forest does not go dormant. It only slows. Year after year, the rhythm continues. A spring passes, and new culms add to the forest's count. A summer passes, and the canopy thickens slightly, the new culms leafing out fully and joining the community of the forest. An autumn passes, and some of the older leaves fall, not all at once, not the great leaf fall of a deciduous forest, but a gentle, continuous attrition, leaves falling throughout the year and being replaced by new growth. A winter passes, cooler and quieter, the forest standing in its evergreen patience, waiting for the warmth. And another spring arrives. The forest has been through this cycle many times. Each cycle adds a little to what was already there, or maintains what exists, or very slowly, in the way of forests, changes the composition, the density, the character. A bamboo forest is never quite static. It is always in the process of becoming, but the becoming is so gradual, so continuous, so unhurried, that any single night spent inside it reveals only the deep, comfortable impression of something ancient and settled and utterly at peace with what it is. You have been here through the rain and through the stillness that follows rain. You have been here through the long gray light of an overcast day and the warmer shifting light of a partly cloudy one. The forest has been around you through all of it, standing in its thousands, growing in its slow way, breathing its slow breath of leaf and air and light. The seasons continue their ancient rotation, and the bamboo continues its ancient growth, and you rest in the middle of it, held by the forest floor, surrounded by the gentle sound of leaves. There is something particular about the spaces in a bamboo forest. Not the stalks themselves, not the solid, smooth, vertical presences of the culms rising around you, but the spaces between them, the air between them, the stillness that occupies the intervals, the particular quality of being inside a space that is at once very open and very enclosed. You are aware of this now, as you sit with your back against the old culm, looking not at any single stalk, but at the network of spaces they create. Each stalk is a vertical line, and the lines repeat, close together, further apart, close again, in a pattern that has no regularity but also no randomness. The forest arranges itself according to the logic of the rhizomes below, which spread in their patient way through the soil. And so the stalks above reflect that logic, clusters here, a little more open there, a dense group near the old stone at the edge of the clearing, a sparser stand where the soil is a little drier, a little thinner. The spaces between the stalks are volumes of air, cool air. In here, cooler than the world outside the forest, where sunlight strikes directly and heat accumulates in the open. Inside the bamboo, the air is held and gentled by the canopy above and the stalks all around, and it moves slowly, drawn through the forest by the same temperature differences that cause all wind, flowing gently in and out like the breathing you keep noticing, like the forest's own slow respiration. You look through the spaces, one after another, the way you might look through a series of open doorways, each one revealing another view behind it. Through the nearest gap between two culms, you see another pair, and through the gap between those, another, and so on, a receding series of pale green verticals and darker intervals, getting smaller and more compressed as they go, until the far reaches of the forest dissolve into a soft general green, indistinct, atmospheric, a color more than a set of individual objects. This is a quality unique to forests made of vertical, repeating elements. A stand of tall grass has it. A grove of slender birches has it. But bamboo, with its particular smoothness and its particular green, and its particular height, bamboo has it in a way that feels almost architectural, as if the forest were a building made of living material, and you were standing in one of its rooms, looking through its doorways, aware of the depth of the structure around you. The depth of the structure around you is considerable. The forest extends for some distance in every direction, not infinitely. Bamboo forests have edges, places where the rhizome network has reached its current extent and the open world begins. But the edge is not visible from here. From here, the forest seems to go on and on, repeating its pattern of stalks and spaces, green and interval, in all directions. The impression is of being inside something large, something that was here before you arrived and will be here long after you leave. There is comfort in this impression, in being small inside something large, in being contained by something that is indifferent to your presence in the most neutral of ways, not hostile, not welcoming, simply continuous. The forest does not notice you. The bamboo does not arrange itself for your benefit or adjust its pace to your requirements. It simply grows, as it has always grown, as it was growing before you came, and will continue to grow after you have drifted away. This continuity is comforting in the way that the night sky is sometimes comforting, not because it cares about you, but because its scale puts the temporary concerns of a single evening in their proper, peaceful perspective. You breathe in the cool forest air. It carries, as it always has, the smell of living green things, of wet soil and decay, in progress, and the faint, sweet breath of chlorophyll. The smell of a place where the cycle of growth and return has been operating for a very long time, where the soil is rich and dark from years of accumulated organic matter, where the air itself has been breathed by the bamboo 1,000 times before it reaches your lungs. The spaces between the stalks hold this air, and the air holds the scent, and the scent is the smell of the forest, which is to say, the smell of patience, and time, and quiet. You look at the space between the two nearest culms, the specific, defined volume of air between two specific stalks. One stalk is perhaps 4 inches from the other. The space between them is a pale green, gray, lit from above by the filtered canopy light, deeper in shadow at the base where the ground is dim. If you were to put your hand into that space, you would feel the cooler air gathering there, and the slight difference in temperature between the open forest air and the air more enclosed between two closely neighboring stalks. Small spiders sometimes string their threads in these spaces. Fine, nearly invisible threads, catching the light at certain angles and becoming briefly apparent, a silver line, a delicate connection between stalk and stalk, an architecture within the architecture. The spider that made it is probably resting somewhere at the edge of the web, waiting with the patience that all web spinning spiders have, which is a patience quite comparable to the patience of bamboo. Both are in the business of waiting and growing and doing the patient small work of maintaining what they have made. The spider adds threads as old ones break. The bamboo sends out rhizomes as old ones complete their growth. Both are engaged in the endless, comfortable labor of simply continuing. The web catches a small drift of forest air and sways very slightly, and then is still again. The spaces between the stalks are very quiet. You find yourself looking at these spaces, entering a kind of calm that has no particular quality except its own stillness. Not sleepy, not awake, somewhere between, in the pleasant interval where thought floats without direction or urgency, where the mind settles like a leaf on still water, drifting without going anywhere, where the spaces between the bamboo stalks become, without any effort on your part, the spaces between thoughts, wide and cool and green, tinted, without edges, without demands, without the need to be anything other than what they are. Calm and still, peaceful and quiet. The forest holds its spaces, and the spaces hold their air, and the air drifts gently through, and everything continues in its comfortable, unhurried way. There is a quality of light that belongs only to the forest in the early morning. It arrives before the sun does. Technically, the sky above the canopy brightens from black to dark gray, to a pearl gray that slowly, very slowly, over the course of many minutes, takes on the first suggestion of color. Not blue yet, not golden, something cooler and more tentative than either of those. A light that is still finding itself, still deciding what kind of morning this will be. Below the canopy, the change in light is even more gradual. The first perceptible difference from nighttime dark is not really light at all. It is the absence of darkness, a slight lessening of the depth of black, a grayness settling into the spaces between the stalks where pure dark had been. The bamboo is the first thing to become visible, and it becomes visible as a slightly paler tone against the general dimness, the smooth surfaces of the culms catching what little light there is and returning it in their subtle, muted way. The forest is at its quietest in these first minutes of morning. Whatever sounds the night carried, the occasional small sounds of nocturnal animals, the settling of the forest in the dark, the long quiet that comes after midnight and before the first birds, those sounds have wound down into their deepest stillness, and the day sounds have not yet begun. There is an interval in the very early morning where the bamboo forest is almost entirely silent, not completely, never completely. The canopy makes its sounds even without wind, as individual leaves shift in the air currents that are always moving in a forest, even when those currents are too subtle to feel. But the sounds are at their minimum, their gentlest, their most sparse. You are here, in this early morning interval. Your back is still against the old culm, which is slightly cooler now than it was in the evening. The stored warmth of the day has dissipated through the night, and the stalk is at the temperature of the forest air, which is at its coolest now, before the sun begins its warming work. Not cold, not uncomfortable, simply the particular coolness of a bamboo forest at dawn, which is, like almost everything about this place, gentle and measured and easy to receive. A bird sounds, not close, Somewhere in the middle distance, on the far side of the forest, perhaps, or in the trees that grow at the forest's edge, a single note, low and clear, hanging in the air for a moment before it fades, not repeated immediately, just that one note, offered to the morning, and then silence again. And then, after another interval, another note, and another. The birds, as they always do, begin to build the morning from these small components. But in the bamboo forest, even the birdsong is gentled by the density of the stalks, by the filtering effect of all that green, by the way the forest absorbs sound and returns it softened. The birds you hear here are distant and muffled and peaceful. Their songs filtered through bamboo, the way light is filtered through bamboo, arriving at you already transformed by its passage, already gentle. The sky above the canopy is definitely lighter now. You can see this in the quality of the gaps, those irregular fragments of sky visible between the overlapping leaves. They have changed from the deep blue, black of full night to something closer to a gray, blue, a color that still holds the memory of night in it, but is clearly moving, clearly in transition. The lightest parts of the sky are toward one horizon, the east, where the sun is still below the visible world, but already beginning to send its preliminary light ahead of itself, washing upward from below the line of the world into the waiting sky above. The bamboo stalks begin to be visible as green again, not just as tonal differences. This is the moment when the forest begins to re-establish itself in color. The gray of pre-dawn, which had made everything equal, which had reduced the forest to a composition of lighter and darker tones without chromatic difference, gives way to the first returning greens, pale, unsaturated greens at first. The memory of green rather than green itself, but growing, as the minutes pass, into something more recognizable, more specific, more true to what the forest actually looks like in daylight. The old calm at your back takes on its golden warmth again, very gradually. The moss at its base, which in the night was simply a darker patch against the dimness of the forest floor, becomes green once more, first a pale, slightly misty green, and then, as the light grows, the vivid, dense green that is its true color. The rhizomes below are already working, in the way that they always are, in the way that the night has not interrupted. The slow extension of the network continues, somewhere below the forest floor. A new bud is forming on a rhizome, stimulated by the warming of the soil as spring approaches, beginning the long, slow process that will eventually produce another shoot, another culm, another stalk to add its height and its leaves to the canopy. The process does not wait for morning. The process does not wait for anything. It is already underway, has been underway through the night, will continue through the day. The light strengthens. It comes in small, incremental steps, each one almost imperceptible, so that no single moment can be pointed to and called the beginning of true day. The transition from night to morning in a bamboo forest is exactly like the growth of the bamboo itself, continuous, gradual, without a specific moment of change that you can name. You simply find, at some point, that it is clearly light, that the forest around you is fully itself again, green and detailed and present. The canopy above, visible in its layered complexity, the forest floor visible in its textured softness, the stalks rising in their pale vertical profusion in every direction. It is morning. A breeze moves through the forest. The first significant movement of air since the long quiet of the night. It comes from the east, from the direction of the brightening sky, and it moves through the canopy in that familiar wave. The wave you have heard so many times now that it has become as natural and expected as your own breathing. The leaves respond, thousands of them turning and catching the moving air, and the sound rises in its rolling way through the forest, wave after wave, from east to west, and then settles. The forest takes a breath. The morning begins. The bamboo stands in its patient, vertical, ancient way, doing what it has always done, what it will continue to do through the long, slow accumulation of days and seasons and years, growing, breathing, connecting, underground, through its spreading network of rhizomes, receiving the light, doing the quiet work of being a bamboo forest, which is among the oldest and most peaceful kinds of work that a living thing can do. You find yourself in the morning, in the forest, in the green and gentle light. And everything is, as it has always been, as it will always be, calm and still, peaceful and quiet. The forest grows, and the morning comes, and there is nothing required of you except to be here, in the green and patient world, for as long as you need. Some of the stalks around you have been standing for a long time. Not forever. Bamboo culms do not live forever. They have a lifespan, measured in years rather than centuries, and then they gradually fade, giving way to newer growth. But some of the culms in this forest have been standing long enough to have developed something that the newer ones have not. A character, a history. You can see it in the way that the oldest culms have begun to take on a golden quality. The deep green of youth has given way, very gradually, to a warmer tone, a yellow, gold, in places where the seasons have worked on the surface of the culm, where the outermost layer of cells has aged and changed. Some have patches of pale color, or the beginnings of a gray-green weathering. Some show thin lines along their length, the remnants of old sheath marks, the places where the protective sheaths of long past seasons have left their traces on the growing culm. These old culms have a different quality of stillness than the newer ones. Perhaps that is fanciful. Perhaps it is simply that age and use have a quality that youth does not. And that quality is visible in the surface of these stalks, the way it is visible in old wood, old stone, old things that have been standing in their places for a long time. There is nothing dramatic about the aging of a bamboo culm. It simply continues to stand as the years pass, doing what it does, contributing what it contributes, and becoming, in the process, a different color, a warmer color, an aged color. The old culm you are resting against has been standing for several years. You think its smooth surface is warm against your back, warmer than the newer stalks, which have a cooler green freshness. The warmth is partly the stored heat of the day, and partly something less definable, the quality of a thing that has been in its place for a long time. The base of this old culm is thicker than it appears from a distance. Down at the ground level, where the culm emerges from the soil, where it connects to the rhizome network below, the stalk is wider and more substantial. Like the base of a pillar, moss has colonized a small patch near the base, the same vivid green moss you noticed earlier on the forest floor, finding the slightly greater moisture that collects at the base of the stalk, making itself at home there, adding its small soft patch of green to the composition of the forest floor. The moss will be here long after this culm is gone. When an old culm finally exhausts its life, when the cells that have been slowly dying for years finally complete their process, When the stalk loses its flexibility and becomes brittle and eventually falls, the forest floor will receive it, and the slow process of decomposition will begin. The bamboo will become, over years, the same dark matter as all the leaves before it, and eventually it will return to the soil, and from the soil, in the patient logic of all natural cycles, it will be drawn up again through rhizomes and roots into new growth. But that is years away. For this particular culm, tonight, it stands. It is solid and warm at your back, and its old yellow-green surface glows softly in the filtered light of the forest, and the canopy above it moves in the evening wind, and everything is very still. Around you, the forest holds its thousands of culms, young and old, pale green and warm gold, newly leafed and long, established, all of them part of the same connected system, all of them rooted in the same slow, spreading rhizome network, all of them doing the same patient work of standing and leafing and breathing in the quiet way that bamboo does. The light is shifting toward the longer, softer quality of late afternoon. The shadows between the stalks deepen slightly, becoming a dimmer green, a richer green. The canopy high above still holds plenty of light. The leaves there glow with a luminous quality as the lower sun angles into them. But down here, on the forest floor, the world is growing gently darker, gently cooler. The wind passes through, a long, slow breath of it, and the canopy responds with its wave of sound rising, rolling, settling, rising, rolling, settling. You have heard this sound many times now, in the time you have been here, and it has become as familiar and comfortable as the sound of breathing. You no longer notice it the way you noticed it when you arrived. It has become part of the atmosphere, part of the world of the forest, part of the steady, undramatic accompaniment to simply being here. The forest has received you completely. There is a particular quality to being inside something that has no awareness of you, that is not arranged for your benefit, that did not begin in order to include you and will not end because you leave. The bamboo forest has this quality. It has been growing here in its patient and connected way since long before this night, and it will continue growing long after every thought you are having right now has dissolved into sleep and been replaced by whatever the night brings. This is not a lonely thought. It is, if you let yourself feel it fully, a deeply comfortable one. You are small inside something large. You are temporary inside something patient. You are one night inside many seasons. And this is not something to resist or lament. It is simply the shape of things, the proportion of a single human being to a living forest that has been accumulating itself for decades. The proportion feels right. Here, the forest is the right size to be inside. Large enough that its continuity extends well beyond the edges of your awareness. Small enough that you can feel its particulars, the specific stalk at your back, the specific quality of the light coming through the specific gaps in the specific canopy above you. You have been through a great deal of this forest tonight. You arrived at its edge and found the light already different from the world outside. You moved into its interior and found the floor soft beneath your feet and the stalks rising around you in their pale, patient profusion. You rested your hand on the smooth surface of a culm and felt the life in it, the deep, quiet life of a plant that has been standing in this place through seasons and rains and winds. You looked down at the forest floor and saw the layers of fallen leaves, years of them, making their slow return to the soil. You imagined the rhizome network below, spreading in the dark earth in all directions, connecting everything to everything in its underground way. You watched a new shoot emerge from the leaf litter, small and protected in its sheaths, pointed at its tip. Beginning the slow ascent, you watched it rise over the drifting days of a gentle season into a calm. You watched the calm put out its branches, and the branches put out their leaves, each leaf unfurling in its quiet way, adding to the canopy. You looked up at that canopy and found it moved in the wind with a particular quality of sound that has, over the course of this journey, become familiar and comfortable. A sound you no longer notice the way you noticed it at first, because it has become part of the atmosphere of the forest, part of what the forest simply is. You rested through rain. You sat in the particular coolness of a forest after rain, when the leaf litter smells of wet earth and the culms gleam with water and the air is deeply clean. You stood in the spaces between stalks and felt what it is to be inside a pattern, a vast, living, patient pattern that repeats in every direction as far as the forest extends. You were in the forest at morning, when the light comes back in its gradual and unhurried way, and the birds begin their first notes from the edges of things. You have been held by this forest tonight, and the forest, in its indifferent and peaceful way, has held you well. And now, very slowly, the light changes. Not disappearing, not yet, not abruptly, just shifting, the quality of it becoming something gentler, something softer, something that feels, if you close your eyes and simply feel it on your face, like the last warmth of a day that has been long and quiet and good. The forest receives this changing light as it receives everything, without comment, without urgency. The leaves catch the last of it and hold it in their green surfaces for as long as they can, and then gently, gradually, they let it go. The canopy is still. There is still sound. There is always sound in the bamboo forest, even as the light fades, even as the day ends. The leaves continue their quiet conversation with whatever air is moving. A small sound here, a small sound there. The faint drip of the last of the rain from the tip of a leaf somewhere high above. A rustling, brief and soft, as something small moves in the leaf litter of the forest floor. The deep, abiding quietness of the bamboo calms themselves. Thousands of them standing in the dimming light, doing what they do. You are still here, resting against the old warm calm at your back. You have drifted through this forest, through its edge, where the world outside begins to fade and the world inside begins to take over. Through its floor, where the layers of accumulated years make a soft and patient carpet. Down through the soil, in imagination, to the rhizome network spreading in all directions in the dark and warm earth. You have watched a new shoot emerge, tender and pointed and protected in its sheaths, and rise through the days of its growing season toward the light. You have been here through rain and dry and the long, slow rhythm of seasons changing, each one adding a little to the great slow accumulation of this place. And now the forest settles toward its nighttime self. The birds, if there were birds, fall quiet. The wind gentles, the light dims further, moving through soft grays and muted greens toward the first suggestion of a forest at night. Not dark, not frightening, but simply quieter. Its colors muted, its sounds reduced, everything settled into a comfortable nocturnal stillness. The bamboo does not sleep. Exactly. Growth does not pause with the light. The rhizomes continue their slow extension in the dark soil below. The cells in the newer culms continue their quiet division. The stored energy in the root system continues to distribute itself through the network, making small and invisible contributions to the slow process of growth that will continue through the night and into the next day and the next season and the next year. The forest grows in the dark. It grows without anyone watching. It grows without acknowledgement or applause or even awareness. It simply grows the way it has always grown, at its own pace, in its own time, because that is what it does, because that is what it is. A bamboo forest, standing in the gentle dark, connected at its roots, branching at its canopy, breathing through its thousands of leaves, growing. The rhizomes extending their patient reach through the cool soil, millimeter by millimeter, hour by hour, in the perfect and complete dark beneath the forest floor, the cells dividing along the edges of each new bud, one becoming two, two becoming four, in the same slow rhythm that has been dividing and multiplying and building since the first bamboo found its particular way of being a plant in the world. The leaves above, in the darkness where photosynthesis has paused until the light returns, still breathing in their quiet way, exchanging gases, doing the simple maintenance of being alive. Everything in the forest is alive. Everything in the forest is doing the continuous, patient, invisible work of continuing, not dramatically, not urgently, just steadily, at the pace of forest, things which is slower than any single night, slower than any season, slower and steadier and more enduring than almost anything you could name in the temporary world outside these pale green walls. You belong, just for now, to this slowness, and the slowness receives you. The slowness has room for you, as it has room for everything that rests inside it, the moss and the spider and the beetle in the leaf litter and the small birds beginning their first notes from the edges of the forest. The slowness is large enough for all of it, for all of you, for whatever you are carrying tonight, whatever the day left behind in your chest, or your shoulders, or the back of your mind. The slowness receives it and does not rush it and does not ask it to be other than what it is. The bamboo grows. You rest. The forest holds you both, in the green and patient dark, as it has always held whatever came to rest inside it. You find yourself settling more deeply into the comfortable weight of your own body. The ground beneath you is as soft as it has always been. All those years of fallen leaves, patient and cushioned, the stalk at your back is as solid and warm as it has always been. The sound of the forest, the distant rustling of the highest leaves, the occasional small sounds of the forest floor, the deep and comfortable silence between sounds, the sound of the forest surrounds you as it has surrounded you since you arrived. There is nothing that needs doing. There is no arrival you are working toward, no destination you are approaching. The journey through the forest is complete, and also not complete, because the forest continues, and you could drift further into it, or turn back toward the edge where you began, or simply stay here, in this comfortable place, with the old calm warm at your back and the leaf sound in the canopy, and the slow, invisible work of growth happening all around you in the dark earth and the quiet air. The forest will be here in the morning, standing in its patient way. The new calm that rose this season will still be there, leaves fully unfurled now, contributing to the canopy. The old calms will still be there, their warm gold surfaces dimly visible in the pre-dawn light. The rhizome network will still be there, extending its slow reach through the soil. The moss at the base of the nearest stalk will still be there, its tiny plants dense and soft and vibrantly, steadily green. The forest grows. You rest. And the bamboo, in its thousands, stands in the gentle dark around you, patient, connected, still growing its slow green growth through the quiet hours, waiting for the morning light to return so it can do what it has always done, what it will always do, in the slow and peaceful rhythm of a forest that has been here for a very long time and will be here for a very long time to come. And the journey continues, always in the green and patient world of the bamboo forest, calm and still, peaceful and quiet, drifting at rest.